We decided to create these interactive scenarios exploring futuristic possibilities in the time of a global pandemic. My name is Joey Berzowska, and I'm currently the Associate Dean Research in the Faculty of Fine Arts, but I'm also a professor in the Department of Design and Computation Arts, where I've been conducting research for the last 20 years in the area of electronic textiles. So what that means is my team, my whole research team, works with specialized equipment that both includes creating textiles by weaving or knitting or embroidery, and then embedding different kinds of technical materials, often electronics, but also different kinds of technical fibers, for instance, to make these textiles interactive. One of the projects I wanted to talk about is actually a project where I was supervising a group of independent study students from various departments, design and computation arts. They were also working with students from theater, etc., developing a very interesting wearable project. So we were working on developing two garments with these tall illuminated components around the body that were both a sort of a cocoon but also visual communication. So one of the students was focusing on developing the actual electronics and programming. One of the students was specifically doing the programming for the illumination and creating custom LED components. Another student was doing interactive embroidery that would both do power transmission and the communication between different components on the garment. Then there was the garment itself that was being sewn and tested. And all of this needed access to Concordia facilities. So in mid-March, when we overnight no longer had access to the buildings, first of all, the garments themselves were not able to be retrieved from the university. And we started this process of rethinking how could we finish to have closure, at least for the end of the semester, around this project. So we decided to create these interactive scenarios exploring, sort of like through design fictions, exploring these futuristic possibilities in the time of a global pandemic, where we would all actually be wearing these almost like carapaces in French, these exoskeletons that would protect us from infection, but at the same time allow us to be closer together, allow for these acts of intimacy mediated through the electronic components of the garments. But we specifically rethought the project for this specific pandemic moment and shifted it into a design fiction context so that we could have closure and finalize something. It's definitely been a very challenging couple of months. As Associate Dean, my workload doubled or even tripled. And then my daughter, who was in daycare full-time, suddenly was with me full-time. And now, actually, my husband was just telling me a funny story this morning that apparently she was playing and and telling one of her toys, I have a Zoom meeting at 8 o'clock, so you can stay here and play quietly, but do not interrupt me. So it's kind of become part of her new normal. But at the beginning, she felt incredibly rejected. You know, she was home with mom the whole day, and yet her mom was basically pushing her away a lot of the time. So we went through many different phases, you know, where at first there was a lot of frustration. Then I actually tried different things like getting up at 6 and just devoting myself full time to her from 6 till 8 a.m. or 6 till 9 a.m. So she would feel that I was there for her, and then it was easier for her to kind of play independently. Then, that's sort of became not possible anymore because I was too tired. And then there were Zoom meetings scheduled really early. So then we went through a phase where I just allowed her to join me in all my meetings, even if that meant she was actually jumping on me, or interrupting. I was just like, I'm sorry, this is the best I can do. And, that was our phase. Now we kind of do different approaches depending on how the day starts. On the research side of things, even though there have been some interesting opportunities, I definitely find like a lot of women in this time, and especially mothers, that we are disproportionately affected by this. I think that we all need to embrace the fact that our work as academics, and especially as researchers, has to be directly tied to making our world a better place. And when I say making the world a better place, I don't just mean for us, but really looking at what's happening outside of, of the research communities, and how can we create research outcomes that can contribute to just helping with all of the inequities, with the violence, the pain, the incredible inequities that are in our world, that we are able to ignore in normal times, and which are now becoming something we can no longer afford to ignore. So I really hope that our research community can shift their work towards deeper reflection, really thinking about equity, inclusion, diversity, thinking about a global perspective,